But this is an across-government response. Everyone will be pulling together. There's not a person that hasn't been affected or will not be affected by the events of this past weekend.
Torrential downpours, deadly mudslides, and now a state of emergency. 3 days after an atmospheric river flooded southwest BC, more than 17,000 evacuees remain scattered across the province. More than 20 evacuation centers are in operation tonight, many of them in the Fraser Valley and the South Okanagan. Thousands of farm animals are dead, with a scramble to save the rest. And with key highways still closed, there are renewed concerns about the already strained supply chain, including food and fuel, with some gas stations completely sold out. Still, BC's Premier says now is not the time to panic buy.
Please do not hoard items. What you need, your neighbors need as well. We are confident that we can restore our supply chains in a quick and orderly manner, provided we all act as we have been acting over the past 2 years.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. BC has declared a state of emergency to help with the aftermath of torrential rain and widespread flooding. The province now has the power to ensure people and cities aren't cut off from essential goods. But let's start tonight in Abbotsford, where another 40 people have been rescued. That's on top of the nearly 200 saved overnight. As the CBC's Renee Filipponi tells us, 40 more are staying put, refusing to leave.
The scope of the damage is shocking, and still, this is an improvement over last night when residents scrambled to safety. Water was rising around Jordan Youngama after he was unable to evacuate.
This is unbelievable. I was planning to leave.
It happened so quick, just a complete snap of the fingers.
He called 911 and spent part of the night on the roof waiting for help.
3:30 a.m. I was, still awake and still coherent, and I heard a little motor putting down, I don't know, probably about 500 meters away.
Rescue crews had finally arrived.
The water was up to my window, like 7 feet from the ground, and I just flashed my flashlight. In other words, I thought I would see a boat float by my bedroom window.
Overnight, officials warned of a catastrophic disaster if a pumping station were to fail and send a deluge of water into an already heavily flooded area. Volunteers worked through the night to build a dam.
I just saw this random post on this page of people saying, hey, bring a shovel, come down to the pump station and help out. It was just cool because everybody was just like down to work.
It's holding for now.
This is still a dynamic situation. We're still monitoring the river levels very closely. We know that this is not over, and this can change very quickly.
Compounding this emergency was a massive fire at an RV dealership, which raised concerns about toxic smoke. Much of today's rescue effort was focused on the animals. This is an agricultural hub in BC. There are 45,000 dairy cows alone in the Fraser Valley. This farmer says officials at the evacuation roadblocks have prevented them from getting to the barns.
There's thousands of cows locked in barns screaming. The water's been cut off. There's thousands of cows without water, and crews need to get in. People need to get in to help.
Thousands of animals have already died, and many more will be euthanized. The agriculture minister says farmers are painting a grim scene.
Some of their barns are flooded, and you can see the animals that are deceased, and it's heartbreaking.
All this at a time when the region is essentially cut off from the rest of the country and holding its breath that the pumps will hold. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Abbotsford.
Bringing in Benit Brach now. She's also in Abbotsford tonight outside the Tradeck, where there's an evacuation center. Benit, as Renee mentioned, thousands of farm animals have been lost from this flooding. Many more are still at risk. What's the plan to save the rest?
Anita, that's the hard part. Farmers being forced to evacuate to save their own lives. Many have had to leave their animals behind. We know that thousands of animals have died. Many will be put down, and those that are alive, the key is really just to keep them fed. It's also to find veterinarians that can access these animals. And BC's minister just in tears today, calling these losses heartbreaking.
There's probably hundreds of farms that have been affected by flooding. Some are still underwater, some are on dry locations, and we have thousands of animals that have perished. We have many, many more that are in difficult situations. There will have to be euthanizations that happen, but there are also animals who have survived that are going to be in critical need for food in the next 24 hours.
It is absolutely heartbreaking, one of the only words to describe this. On top of the losses in the farming community, families are also trying to save their pets. And we are looking at
volunteers.
Go ahead, sorry.
Volunteers are here. They're helping to gather the essentials. In Abbotsford, the BCSPCA also helping despite being evacuated from their own building.
We are working to provide pet supplies, food, crates, leashes, harnesses, whatever people who have been evacuated need to kind of take care of their pets. We're also offering emergency boarding to animals that if owners can't keep their pets with them.
All we know is that the situation is dire. Hundreds of farms are damaged, and just if these animals don't get help, many more will die.
Benit Brach reporting live from Abbotsford tonight. Thank you. With all major routes to the interior completely cut off, communities are now starting to run out of the goods they need to survive. In the Fraser Valley, tensions are running high. There's anxiety in Hope and Chilliwack, with food, gas, and other supplies beginning to run out. Susanna De Silva is in Chilliwack tonight.
I'm ready to work through IVR here.
Using his military training, this volunteer is coordinating a massive undertaking.
How many are in the second booking? 4. There's 4, yeah.
Trying to help all these people get out of Chilliwack by air, and for some, time is of the essence.
I build up lots of potassium, phosphates, sodium, and I start swelling up with lots of fluid, and body slowly shuts down, basically.
22-year-old Mitchell Dick is waiting for a kidney transplant. He goes to Abbotsford 3 times a week for dialysis, but floodwaters have made the 30-kilometer trip impossible.
I just thought, man, this might not do immediate damages, but this is definitely going to shorten my lifespan if I don't get there quick.
And it's not just getting out. Nothing can come in either. Some pharmacies say they are already rationing medications.
We don't have any more medical puffers and things right now. We grabbed the wrong stuff in our panic to leave. We grabbed the empty stuff instead of the full stuff.
Where's the car? Does it start?
The Attiers, including 3 kids under 7, were evacuated from the community of Yarrow in Chilliwack. They managed to find inhalers for their kids with severe allergies, but food is another problem.
There is no fresh produce, there's no bread, there's no milk, there's nothing in there. It's kind of insane.
Stuart Cutter went to almost half a dozen stores to find basics for his family of 7.
I'm wondering what this next couple weeks is going to be like. And we're already sharing with our neighbors.
In Hope, a similar situation, but some supplies and even meals prepared by community members in Surrey have been flown in.
It's an emotional time. Everybody's coming together and helping where they can.
Much harder to fly in, gas. Pumps are running dry.
Well, my husband has a full tank, so we'll be sharing a car.
I've been to 3 different gas stations now and nothing.
That's Susanna De Silva reporting tonight from Chilliwack. Now, to try to deal with this fallout and the supply chain, the province brought in a BC-wide state of emergency at noon today. Belle Puri is tracking that part of the story. Belle, what power does a designation like this actually give the government?
Well, the powers under a state of emergency are fairly wide. The law gives government more freedom to do what it needs to do to alleviate the effects of a natural disaster like this storm. It's designed to protect basic access to services and supplies for communities across the province. It gives government far greater flexibility as it tries to address the aftermath, and that includes dealing with everything from travel to people hoarding groceries.
Do the right thing. Listen to what your mom told you when you were little. Do unto others as you would have do unto you. Respect the fact that you do not need 48 eggs. A dozen will do, and leave the rest for somebody else.
Now, Premier John Horgan says this is the time to remember, as we heard him say earlier, that what you need, your neighbor needs it too. The province, of course, has already had a couple of states of emergency over the last 2 years. One was connected to COVID-19 and the other to this summer's wildfires. This one will be in effect for 14 days, but can be extended if necessary.
Okay, and Belle, where are we at in terms of getting all those roads cleared from the landslides so that we can actually get people and goods moving again?
Work to clear the debris and assess the damage is continuing, and repair plans are in the works. The priority is, of course, to connect the Lower Mainland to the interior. The state of emergency gives the province the power to control travel. So that means no travel for pleasure, where highways are reopened at minimal capacity. Now, along Highway 7 between Agassiz and Hope, as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, it has been open to passenger vehicles only heading west. The intent of the opening is to allow people stranded in Hope to make their way toward the Lower Mainland. Once they're out, the highway will be closed again.
Progress is being made on clearing and repairing some of the other routes, including Highway 3, Highway 99, as well as Highway 1, the Malahat on Vancouver Island. Highway 3, by the end of the weekends, will be open to emergency access, and we continue to work to restore full traffic on that route. Highway 99 work began this morning. The pavement appears to be intact on that route after we have cleared debris and slide material.
Yesterday, RCMP confirmed mudslides have claimed at least one life, that of a woman who was caught in a slide just south of Lillooet. It's expected officials will confirm more fatalities in the coming days. At this point, 4 people have been listed as missing. Meanwhile, the provincial opposition parties have called for a special emergency debate on the government's response to the unfolding of the disaster. That'll happen tomorrow afternoon in Victoria.
Okay, Belle, thank you. Meanwhile, supply issues are prompting BC Ferries to put on a special sailing tomorrow between Victoria and Nanaimo. This is to help move people and goods around the closed Malahat Highway. The ferry will run once, round trip between Swartz Bay and Duke Point tomorrow. It can carry about 30 commercial vehicles, more than 150 private cars, and just over 1,600 passengers. The sailing is for drive-up customers and is first come, first serve. It comes as some island gas stations are reporting shortages and in some cases, dry tanks as people concerned about shortages fill up. Slowdowns and overnight closures on the Malahat have disrupted fuel delivery, and this afternoon, long lineups across Victoria as people tried to get in. Well, from cooks to pilots, volunteers across BC are banding together to help hundreds of people who have been stranded. As Janella Hamilton reports, essentials like food and life-saving medications are being flown into the isolated communities cut off from the rest of BC.
300 meals have been flown to Hope to help feed hundreds of people who are still stranded.
There's a group of 200 truckers and quite a few families out there, and they're at a gas station.
Baljeet Lawley is with Khalsa Aid, an international organization providing humanitarian aid in disaster areas. She says when she saw a Facebook post from a trucker stranded just outside of Hope, she and other volunteers jumped in to help.
Also, Devar in Vancouver responded, and they said they're more than willing to cook as many meals as we needed.
Then it was loaded up and flown to Hope with London Air Services.
Those truckers who are stuck there, who can't leave their loads, they're sleeping in their trucks. So anything we can do to help them, we're happy to do.
Thomas says London Air has been inundated with calls from families in need.
We have just people who were traveling in the interior. They live in Vancouver. There was a very large hockey tournament in Kelowna. We have a lot of hockey players who are stuck there.
Pilots have also been flying essential medications to pharmacies in the communities cut off by the floods. Andrea Backman says pilots from across BC are stepping up to help.
It's been call after call after call. People, both pilots with planes volunteering themselves, their planes, everything.
Backman says if people are able to make it to the Hope Airport, volunteer pilots will be there to pick them up.
The best bet is to get over to the airport, or at least near the airport, let people know that you're looking for the ride out.
23-year-old Upjoke Gill is a volunteer with Khalsa Aid. For him, the disaster is personal.
We have a few friends out in Abbotsford that were impacted with the flood. And I also go to school out in UFE, so my school this entire week was shut down.
Volunteers will now focus their efforts on helping seasonal migrant farm workers who are also stranded and in need of food. For anyone else who wants to help, Emergency Management BC suggests you donate money to trusted groups like the United Way, the Canadian Red Cross, and Food Banks BC. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Richmond.
Now let's move into the interior, where movement itself is all but impossible in several places. Merritt is still largely underwater. The city has been evacuated and is without drinking water, bridge access, or emergency services. Similarly, it's still hard getting in and out of Lillooet, where one person died and 4 people are still missing after Monday's mudslide. Aaron Collins has the latest from those communities tonight.
From the air, the impact of this flood easy to see. This stretch of Highway 99 still impassable. The search for cars and passengers swept away by a mudslide here ongoing. Life has stalled in the city of Merritt, too. Floodwaters forcing its 7,000 residents to flee. Officials say they won't be able to return anytime soon. And some will never be back in their homes. This house simply floated away.
It went under. The river just took it under and gone. Within seconds.
But amidst the loss, a familiar refrain heard across BC's interior.
All our stuff that we gathered in 20 odd years, some of our animals were in that house. It's all gone, but we're not the only ones.
Some in BC are asking how so much water came so fast with so little warning. The answer may lie in the scorched woods that line much of BC's interior, burnt in record-setting wildfires this summer.
The roots from these trees are supposed to hold the dirt in place. When heavy rain falls, that slows the water. And when the trees burn, that layer of protection is removed, making major floods and mudslides more likely.
These are unprecedented times. We need to start preparing for a future that includes more regular events like this, and we fully intend to do that.
The Premier is likely right, according to this climatologist.
It is the year, I think, that climate change has begun to bite deep and hard in Canada. It's a reality for millions of Canadians.
A frightening new normal that has many wondering when, not if, the next once-in-a-lifetime natural disaster will strike. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Kelowna.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke about the disaster in BC from Washington, D.C. today before he met with U.S. and Mexican presidents. That's actually happening tomorrow. He promised Ottawa is sending resources to BC, and he talked about the American role in rebuilding.
It's also something that has impacts south of the border that have been hit by the rains, but also as we're looking at maintaining supply chains and people are diverting around through the United States, we are working closely with our partners on the other side of the border to make sure that things work well. And it's yet another example of the fact that people are there for each other in difficult times in this long and enduring friendship between Canada and the United States.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe is with us now. And Johanna, it looks like the floodwaters have receded in a lot of places, but we know that could change. What are we looking at?
Anita, some new rain in the forecast over the next 24 hours. Not enough that it should reverse that slow dropping we are seeing of river levels. But let me take you through to the latest satellite and radar. A system that was looking to stay mainly south of us over the next day will flip the most impacted regions, just with a good 5 to 10 millimeters of rain, a far cry from the 250 millimeters we saw in 24 hours. But let me take you right through to the end of the week. You can see the darker greens there, just sneaking up through to Hope and then south of Whistler. That's the sort of 10 to 20 millimeter range. So that may add to the overland flooding, but generally we are seeing water levels drop. I know we've been really focusing on the area between Abbotsford and Chilliwack, sort of wedged between two different watersheds. And it really has taken 48 hours for those two watersheds to begin, basically finish responding to all of that rain from Monday, Anita, and maybe a couple more days before we finally see some dry ground for those communities.
All right, we'll talk to you in a little bit, Joe. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We know one of the hardest hit areas of this province is Abbotsford. Thousands of animals have died on farms there, unable to be saved. And while every person is accounted for, there are still people who are in the areas under evacuation order. I want to bring in Abbotsford Police Chief Mike Sear now. Chief, what are the biggest challenges you're facing tonight?
Hi, Anita. So we continue to, enforce the evacuation orders. We're out there with search and rescue with other resources. Since this morning, we've had 40 more people evacuated from those areas around the Sumas Prairie. We've had 40 people that have not wanted to leave, and we've had 3 calls that we still have as of 3 p.m. where people are still asking for assistance to get out of the area. I mean, some of our challenges, it's a very large agricultural area. We're trying to support our agricultural ministry and getting supports in there for the farms, for the feed and water and things like that. But it is still very challenging. It's still dynamic. Many of the roads have been damaged, and we're just trying to assess that and try to support our community as best as we can.
And what happens to those 40 people who are refusing to leave?
At this point, unless it involves young children or people that could be compromised, they are being allowed to stay. We are strongly encouraging them to leave these areas. Our biggest concern, and for everyone listening, is that right now it is stable, but that can change very, very quickly. And what you are doing is putting our search and rescue, police officers, fire rescue services in danger. If this does get more serious, which can happen very quickly, that we have to go back in there and rescue people, and putting us at risk and you at risk.
Well, and talking about that risk, we know there's a fine line when it comes to disasters and community members jumping in to help. But in this case, how key has that help been?
Yeah, I can tell you it's been, just amazing. I've been out in the community a few times assessing the damage and meeting with people, and, just actually witnessing firsthand how the community is coming together, whether it's through donations and support. That has been outstanding. Watching other community members helping farmers, other ranchers helping, our agricultural sector remove animals, bring in supports. And likewise, as everyone has heard a lot about, our pump station, what happened last night was unbelievable. The amount of support, people that came out there to get that diked up and to ensure that it wasn't over flooded and we didn't lose that pump station was unbelievable. So there are times where sometimes too much help. We're asking the public to just be mindful that just don't show up all the time, because it sometimes causes us more concern. But we have seen just some amazing outpouring of support. We went to the evacuation site over at Tradex, and seeing families that have been displaced by the floods is just it's very difficult to see, and young children, driving by many of the homes that are under significant amounts of water, and knowing that the impact that will have on them for many, many years potentially, and just seeing just how hard this community is going to take us some time to rebuild, but at the same time, seeing our community coming together and supporting one another has also been very heartwarming.
Abbotsford Police Chief Mike Sear, thank you.
Thank you.
The province is pleading for calm, but people are panic buying, worried a supply shortage could start to impact parts of the province. We break down whether there is reason to be concerned next. The devastating floods and landslides are happening in a region critical to getting goods into and around the country. Vital connections like key rail lines have been destroyed, all during a time when supply chains are already strained because of COVID. Jamie Strachan looks at the effort to get the supply chain back on track.
In the light of day, the damage done by the rains that have swamped much of BC is jarring.
Getting our roadways and rail back up and in operation is our #1 priority.
The unrelenting rain has cut off highways and destroyed key rail lines, creating more uncertainty for a supply chain already strained by a global pandemic.
This is a huge job, but collectively we're up to the challenge, and we will get things opened up again just as soon as we possibly can.
At Canada's busiest port in Vancouver, 2 important rail lines that service the terminal are down, meaning trains can't be loaded.
Well, there's already congestion at the port, so the mere fact that those trains are stalled means that is going to back up further because those ships are still underway. They're coming here regardless.
Trucks are being used to keep things moving.
It's all hands on deck.
It takes about 400 trucks to move what 1 train car can carry.
There will be disruptions. It won't be as smooth as it was, but it is coming. So there's no need to go out and buy a month's worth of groceries this afternoon.
All Canadian highways leading to the lower mainland are closed, so trucks must cross the U.S. border to access alternate routes. Contingency plans in place for natural disasters like earthquakes have been activated to make that easier.
They can move and just literally use the interstate systems and the highway systems in Washington State as a detour.
The Premier says the province has the tools to rebuild quickly and is asking people to stay calm and consider others.
Please do not hoard items. What you need, your neighbors need as well. We are confident that we can restore our supply chains in a quick and orderly manner.
A big challenge, but officials insist key supply routes are being brought back online as quickly as possible. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
One area deeply impacted by supply chain disruptions is Chilliwack. Susanna De Silva is on the ground there tonight. Susie, we saw pictures of empty shelves. Is that still the case today? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, there are still lots of empty shelves. A lot of those basics you can't really get. They're very hard to come by. Your milks, your eggs, bread, cheeses, those kinds of things. Flats of water, we're hearing from some people that are hard to come by. A lot of just empty shelves of different kinds of goods as people go in. A lot of those issues. We spoke to a pharmacy today. Also some concerns in terms of medications, asking people when they come in, instead of getting maybe 3 months of medications, maybe only get 1 month of medications so they can try to make those supplies last a little bit longer. Gas, of course, is another issue. We've seen people driving around different stations. We've heard of some that may only have premium gas, others who have none whatsoever, and people trying to figure out, I've got this much in my tank, how far can I go? So certainly some of those issues around on some of those basic things. We heard about a bakery that had run out of flour. They didn't have any more flour to make bread. And we've also heard of friends trying to use social media to, say this item is here, and maybe we've got some of this, or let me bring you something, let me bake you some bread, let me bring you something to help you out, as some of those basic items are hard to come by.
Well, I remember the start of COVID and seeing empty grocery store shelves myself and how scary that was. So how are people there feeling about all of this?
Yeah, there's a lot of people trying to be patient. There is certainly some frustration. I heard someone yelling towards us in the parking lot today, if only people didn't buy more than they actually needed. So there is some concern that people have done some of that. So a little bit of frustration, but also a lot of people saying, you know what, we just have to be patient. This is an overwhelming disaster. Where they are here in Chilliwack, a lot of them haven't been directly impacted by the flooding. They're looking at those images coming out of Abbotsford and just trying to be grateful for the fact they didn't lose everything in some of that flood water. So they recognize they're just going to have to be patient, to wait, to work together, and maybe make the best of it. We spoke to a family this morning. They've got 3 little kids forced out of their home by flood waters. They're in the hotel actually just across the street there, saying, all we can do is look at this as the fact we're all here, we're all together. We aren't working right now. We'll look at it as a mini vacation. Someone brought them some swimsuits for their kids so they could go into the pool to try to take advantage, be patient, cope with the situation as best as they can, and know that it is going to be slow. Some of those highways opening up with Highway 7 with a lane for essential traffic, hoping some of those supplies and things will start to be able to come in, but recognizing it is going to be a slow process, and not being patient doesn't really help anyone. So they're trying to be positive at this point. Anita?
Keeping the faith. Susanna De Silva in Chilliwack tonight. Thank you. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe is here again. And Joe, you've just come back from the COP26 climate change conference in Glasgow. Can you tell us about the connections between this catastrophe here in BC and climate change?
Yeah, Anita, first, I have to say that, speaking to dozens of climate experts and representatives from countries all around the world, even the developing countries, when they found out that I was from British Columbia, they wanted to talk about the heat dome this summer and what that felt like to be part of an unfolding climate crisis. Of course, coming back to this unfolding disaster, the domino effects are clear of these climate change infused events, and one that we will continue to talk about. I set the radar back on the atmospheric river event Sunday into Monday. I want to show you just the deluge of that 250 millimeter event in 24 hours, the highest single day rainfall totals that we've seen. As we've heard throughout the show, the mudslides and the road washouts compounded by both the wildfires this summer and through our back-to-back historic wildfire seasons of 2017, 2018, and the fact that our trees were so stressed this summer from the heat dome, meaning that the soils were just ripe to give way with this kind of event. In the IPCC science report that was the backbone of the COP26 talk, the language about the increase in atmospheric river events was clear. We will see an increase in intensity as we head into the end of the century. Anita, I just want to show you one other angle that we're following tonight, and that's the temperatures. You saw Susie and myself outside. You can see our breath tonight. We are going to be getting down to the freezing mark once again. I'll talk more about that coming up a little bit later on in the show, but not the kind of weather we want for the hundreds of people out of their homes tonight. And I've got another big rainfall event that I want to talk about a little later on in the show.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
A family of 4 sleeping in their car for days now, caught in hope, but not without plenty of good things to say about the community. That interview is coming up.
Prime Minister Chrétien is in Vancouver tonight, getting ready to play host to world leaders at the Asia-Pacific Economic Summit. Some of those leaders have big problems because a financial crisis is sweeping Asian economies like a virus. Sasha Petrusik has the latest on the summit preparations and its issues.
The first government plane to arrive this afternoon was Canadian, the first leader, Jean Chrétien, here to host 17 other prime ministers and presidents, Democrats and dictators, including some Asian leaders who are not getting a warm, unofficial welcome here. Officially, Canada has pulled out all the stops for this meeting. Motorcades whisk delegates through the streets of Vancouver. Watch carefully from the sky and the sea.
Where are you going?
By Mounties and the military. But just as last night's grand opening didn't go quite as planned for Trade Minister Sergio Marchi,
it was supposed to work. That's right, that's...
So the light has dimmed on the APEC economies. For the first time since the organization was created, the carloads of ministers and the streams of officials aren't here to talk about fueling the region's stunning growth, but rescuing its sudden economic decline.
But we will be discussing that, and we have very much confidence of the growth and the economic activities in the Pacific in the years to come.
That's the reassuring message leaders will try hard to deliver, backed by a proposed plan for financial guarantees for countries like South Korea and others here. U.S. and Canadian foreign ministers talked about the issue this afternoon.
We obviously are concerned about the financial crisis. It's going to be a subject of discussion here at APEC.
The topic also squeezed its way into meetings among trade ministers, unavoidable, because without stability, prospects are not good for the free trade measures they plan, including some that could help Canadian industries.
There's very strong support, I would say, for fish and forestry products.
There's no guarantee those two key sectors will be singled out for relatively fast free trade. Ministers are still talking about that possibility tonight and tomorrow. The only real urgency here is how to make sure that parts of the Asia-Pacific economy don't come down before the trade barriers do. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Vancouver.
Floodwaters are slowly receding in Merritt. That's allowing officials to start getting a sense of the damage. The entire city was placed under an evacuation order when flooding overwhelmed the wastewater treatment system. Officials say the city's 7,000 residents must stay away until it's fixed. I spoke to Brady Strachan in Merritt earlier today and asked him what the situation is right now.
Anita, we're here just outside of the city where a number of evacuees are staying in their RVs and campers behind us. They, of course, are among the 7,000 people that have been asked to leave Merritt. Now, there are roadblocks on all the highways going into the city, and they're not allowing people in unless they're to go all the way through. They are escorting some people through. And what they're trying to do is really get a handle on the infrastructure, the critical infrastructure that is down, the wastewater treatment plant that has been totally compromised. So they've got engineers looking at that. They've got engineers looking at one of the main bridges that crosses the Coldwater River to see if it can support traffic, because right now the city is cut in half by that river, and they want to be able to connect back and forth. We were speaking with the information officer, and he says that actually there are a number of people that have stayed. They're asking them to leave because there are really no city services, so they would like them to leave if they haven't already.
Well, and I imagine a lot of people are desperate to get back to see what damage has been done to their homes. You've been talking to people outside of Merritt all day. What are they saying?
Yeah, we were at the roadblocks where there are long lines of cars, and most of those people are being escorted through the city to the other side, but some of them are checking to see if they can get in to get medications or just see what their damage is. We spoke to one man, Elwood Komanowski, in line, and here's what he had to say.
I didn't think it was going to be this bad, so I just got out and didn't think it was going to be near this bad, but it's way worse than I think everybody's kind of caught by surprise. Yeah, so that's all so I'm hopefully I can get me in there, and I have to be escorted in so I can just grab a few of my items, have a quick look. I don't know if I want to look.
And he, of course, his house was flooded, so he's hoping he can find out what the damage is and just recover a few things so he can go back to where he's staying. We've also been speaking to people in the RVs behind us here, and we've met some people who live just outside of town who've been coming by with stew and chili and baking that they've made, and also portable water, and they've been filling up people's water jugs and giving them a nice warm meal here. So there is a lot of community support and people helping people through this crisis. Anita?
That's the story all across the province. Brady, thank you so much, reporting from Merritt tonight. Hundreds of people have been stranded in Hope since mudslides and flooding caused major highways to close. Earlier today, I also spoke with a man going through this. Greg Robbins and his family have been stuck in Hope since Sunday night. They've been sleeping at an Esso gas station for the last 3 nights.
Well, I think we're trying to take it in stride and stay positive. And just look at the bright side. I mean, we were lucky in that we missed some of those slides just by maybe half an hour. And I know many people are in far worse shape than we are. So I think we sort of are counting our blessings and knowing that it could be worse, and we're surrounded by good people.
The people of Hope have been so generous, and everyone is just offering their homes and food. We've actually found a home to take refuge in tonight, so thankfully it won't be a fourth night in the car because it's getting pretty cold.
I mean, it was sort of smooth sailing out of Kelowna when we heard Highway 5 was closed, and then down 3A was pretty good, but then or 5A, and then when we hit 3, it really turned sort of spooky. It was dark, it was wet, there were accidents, and then we managed to hit this enormous pothole and blew out our front tire and had to pull over along with about 20 or 30 other cars. And that was the beginning of it. Once we got that fixed and helped some other people, we got to Hope, and it was pitch black, absolutely pitch black. They had a complete and total blackout. So they rerouted us away from Route 1 and down Highway 7. And we thought, okay, we're going to make it now. But the rain was pouring. There were puddles everywhere. And that's when we came to the complete stop.
We sat there for about 3 hours. And then we heard that the Ricky's was open, and we turned around and came up, and it was flooding. The roads were flooding. We almost didn't make it through the roads. And so we ended up sheltering there with probably about 300 other people.
Yep.
They had a generator.
Wow. So you've already been through a heck of a lot in the last few days. Do you have any concerns, though, about what's to come, perhaps about food supply or gas supply?
Yes. We managed to get to the Save-On yesterday morning, and it was already pretty slim. By last night, we saw pictures. There's nothing there. The owner of the service station, he's been going to all the trucks that are parked behind him, asking if they have any perishable food. He's been trying to feed us. We've had some donations from the Trans Mountain Pipeline crews. There is very little here, and without trucks coming through, they're going to run out of food soon. And fuel. People are, hoarding fuel because we've got to get out of here too. So it's a bit concerning.
And we did call this family again just before airtime tonight. They are on the move. Highway 7 has opened. It happened around 5 o'clock to westbound traffic. So the family is still in Hope. They're trying to get into position to leave town. They say cars are everywhere as the community starts to empty. But Greg and his family hope to make it home tonight. A change is in the works. The government is set to announce new rules on border traffic. What it means for your travel plans. That's next.
Hello, welcome to the Sad Coffee. I'm gonna show you how I make a crazy good cup of coffee here. Every morning I wake up, I feel happy for my decision. I quit the job in my country, Vietnam. I sell the house. I just choose the location in the map, and then we move here. I can open my dreaming come true coffee shop here. So we start with the hero, the beans. So we sourcing the bean from around the world, like Colombia, Brazil, Ethiopia, and my hometown, Vietnam. I being a green bean buyer here, doing a quality control, how to measure the quality of the green bean. Every day is the good day to start with coffee. Next is roasting, where the magic happens, where a lot of chemical reaction happen to bring on a lot of crazy good coffee profile and bring out different type flavor profile that can how to say, like, surprise the customer. Very specific things, like it's scientist thing about coffee. That is also my favorite as well. Like I starting with the coffee should be really sweet, smooth, and always amazing aftertaste. And then in between, you can add in some like different flavor from different kind of bean, like floral or nutty or caramel, anything that really like feature the attributes of the bean, you know. Next is brewing coffee, which is hand brewing, one of our signature way to bring the most interesting coffee flavor to life. Working in coffee make you like being a creator. You think about it like the obsession. It's in my blood, like the coffee running through my blood. Last, just enjoy the coffee, do what you love and love what you do.
You are watching CBC Vancouver News and our BC Storm Special. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe here now. And Joe, I think what everyone is hoping for is calm, dry conditions. Are you seeing that in the forecast?
Yes, Anita, that would be ideal through the long range as we wait days for all of that water to recede, which it may do. And we do have a few good dry days in the forecast, but I am watching an event towards the end of the weekend into early next week. But first, let me take you back to, some of the most astounding of the pictures that we have across southwestern BC and in through the interior from the past few days. Part of the reason why it's been so hard to pinpoint exactly when those water levels will recede, many of our hydrological gauges that measure both the height and the amount of water that's passing through a station were actually inundated because of all of that rainfall. So actually stopped recording information. And not only is that helpful for hydrologists to figure out exactly where water levels are at, but that's the information we use to enter into our models to help tell us when waters will recede. Now, a lot of them are back online now, but this has been part of the problem of the past 24 hours. I want to take you back to the big picture and talk about that event that I'm looking in the forecast. Right now, we've sort of got a split flow in the jet stream. Prince Rupert has been dealing with heavy rain today, and south of the border, heavy rain. This is a snapshot of tomorrow's forecast. You can see pretty dry through the interior Prince George down towards Cranbrook, getting some cold temperatures to kick off the day, but clear conditions. We are watching, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that rain moving into the south coast for tomorrow. So really kicking off in Metro Vancouver and through the valley mid-morning hours. That's when we'll sort of get the 5 to 10 millimeter story. Friday, we dry back out, but then as we head into the long-range forecast, Saturday rain, Sunday showers, and Anita, it's Monday that we're looking at a potential for significant rain. So I'll keep my eyes on that closely over the next couple of days.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Now turning to the COVID-19 pandemic, BC is reporting 324 new cases of the virus today. Since yesterday, 7 more people have died. Of the active cases, 379 people are in hospital and 109 are in intensive care. Now, Canadian travelers will no longer have to take a PCR test when returning from the U.S. for a trip that lasts 3 days or less. That is according to sources who say the federal government will soon announce it's dropping that requirement. Rafi Bujikanian has more from Ottawa.
For months, this border crossing, usually an inconvenience that lasts a few minutes, has been a slog, not worth the trouble.
Because of the price of the test to come back, and now he's involved because I heard a story about you cannot find any place to get the test, and then downtown the other side. We canceled a concert, Rolling Stone concert. It was yesterday because of the restriction. And yeah, we just wait for all of this to be behind us and be able to cross like before.
Exactly the kind of cross-border trip that will soon become much less cumbersome. If you're headed to the US for less than 72 hours and have your COVID-19 shots, no more need for a self-swab when you return home.
I just got news of that this morning, and it was like early Christmas.
It's not just Canadians rejoicing. Ali Hayton's store in Point Roberts, Washington mostly relies on business from British Columbia to keep the lights on.
They can't wait to get back down, and people that have historically for years and years spent Thanksgiving down on the Point, or just come down to, like I said, go fill up their gas tank, grab some groceries, go to the cafe and walk along the beach.
There are those asking the federal government to go further.
We need to get rid of this test altogether and found what we're doing on the issue of whether or not a person has been fully vaccinated.
There is a debate about whether the test should be scrapped altogether, but some medical professionals see good reason for it to be removed for Canadians going on short trips.
The turnaround time for the test is such that it becomes almost meaningless, because you would have to get the test done almost as soon as you cross the border in order to have a result by the time you want to come back. And so both the additional benefit of that and the feasibility of that, and whether or not that would reflect any new exposures while you're, across the border, I think makes it kind of a pragmatic decision.
Meanwhile, back in Windsor.
And if it does have to start with 72 hours, we'll take it, because we are a day trip destination. So is Detroit for many of us, and that can still be done.
A small step, sources tell CBC to expect by the end of the month. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Heartbreaking stories of loss and destruction. We hear from a Merritt family who lost everything right after the break.
This is how Maxwell Macaulay's making a name for himself, bringing to life sketches of people who often don't even know he's drawing them.
I like the idea of just interacting with people in Halifax. Giving a drawing to someone is kind of an excuse in a way to have a conversation with someone. So people open up almost like immediately when I give them a drawing, and I think that aspect of it has been really super cool.
I live in a place called Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, which is
He started doing it for fun and to practice his artwork a couple of years ago, but sharing his process on social media through videos recorded on his phone has resulted in him becoming more popular than he ever expected.
All these people in Halifax are really enjoying it, so I figured probably people online would like it as well. So why not give it a go?
Creating portraits like this and then capturing people's reactions has earned him hundreds of thousands of followers on the social media platform TikTok, where he's also generated millions of likes.
It just boomed. So, internet's weird.
After being bullied at high school, he turned to art as an escape from anxiety that led to depression.
Struggling a lot with mental health, and the only thing I could really lean on was my art. So, stress reliever. Something I only really enjoyed, I thought, like out of all the stuff with school. I really did like school, but couldn't concentrate as much.
Macaulay, who goes by the moniker Slick Skills, has produced about 300 sketches of people going about their lives around Halifax so far, in places like cafes, bars and parks. Being showcased on a few popular social media accounts has also led to a demand for his work. People from as far as the Philippines are now commissioning him for his drawings.
That's been great. I'll have a lot of people wanting just me to draw themselves or their family, just doing something in general. So I've received all these pictures like, hey, my kid's a gamer, like here's a picture of him gaming, love to have like a little setup for him. It's been like a really positive outlet for him, love to have a drawing of that. Just families. I have just people like want me to draw their dogs, of course, that's a common thing.
He's been able to quit his job as a house painter with all the work he's getting. Now he's thinking surprise sketches that he gets the most out of.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you
that is for you.
so much. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I think it's super cool. I feel like it's a good way to
kind of brighten someone's day. They may not be expecting it, so I mean, I was already having a good day, but it made my day better.
No, I'm just happy that she's happy.
Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Halifax.
Many people who were forced from their homes in Merritt on Monday aren't sure what they'll be returning to, but one couple knows their home has been destroyed because they saw rising floodwaters sweep it away. Now they're homeless, relying on the kindness of family and friends and wondering what's next.
The bottom field started to flood. My son and I were starting to sandbag, and it just got worse and worse, and we were driving through several feet of water, trying to sandbag and save everything we could. It was like 1 minute we were sandbagging, I looked up and we were completely surrounded in water, and debris and things of our property were floating by us. Our house, we started to see that it started to erode underneath our house. So we grabbed what we could at the moment, and yeah, we got out.
Yeah, it just started collapsing. The front part that faced the river, the floor went. So I entered the house stupidly, and I looked down the stairs, and all I could see was river, and it was flowing. And then we saw a couch go by, and we go, well, don't need that anymore. And it just, yeah. And then a big crack.
All our stuff that we've gathered in 20 odd years, or some of our animals were in that house. It's all gone. But we're not the only ones. There's so many people out there that are in worse shape as us. But my son went down to the property. He got down there and there's absolutely nothing left. I mean, the power of the river took our barn. Like, it's gone. Everything's gone except for a little small piece of a workshop. Our house foundation is gone, and yeah, it's terrible. I feel so strong for those poor people out there as well that have lost everything. That was our retirement home. We had planted fruit trees, and that was going to be our retirement. I have been growing flowers in my greenhouse, and I started to sell those, and it's all gone now. Our trees are gone. Everything's gone. But we're okay.
Just one of so many devastating stories across the province. Thank you for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6 and our BC Storm special coverage. We'll leave you tonight with the sun setting over a flooded Abbotsford. Stay safe.